Hey guys, what's going on? It's FTJ Gaming with a quick movie review for Atomic Blonde. It's about 10 p.m. on the East Coast on Thursday. Just got out from an early showing, started at 7. So I want to do a quick review, quick recap of what the plot, the storyline's about. Then I'll do what I like and didn't like about it. Um, First off, I'll just kind of let you know it's based in the 80s. The whole movie is like 80s theme, which is really cool. So if you're like from the 80s and the 90s, you'll really like it. It brought back a lot of memories of stuff from the 80s, even just like landlines, like telephones. And there's a lot of like bright neon colors throughout the movie. But the story is basically a spy movie based in Germany, which is like West Berlin and in East Berlin. And it involves like the U.S. CIA, British MI6, which I believe is like their CIA, and then it just takes place in Germany. It's a pretty typical, straightforward plot when you think about it. It's just about a list. In a lot of movies, you'll find there's like a list, either on a disc or on paper or somewhere, but there just happened to be a list. I guess naming names of certain people, and they don't even actually really explain what's on the list, unless I missed it. But it's just a list with people, maybe like just a bunch of corrupt people that can get themselves in a lot of trouble if you bring the list forward, kind of deal, like if you release who's on the list. But the tricky part is the movie, how it's done. I can see a lot of people maybe not liking it, because it kind of, I know a lot of movies have done this. I don't know if necessarily spy movies do it, but they start you off maybe like at the end of the movie, middle of the movie, where you're kind of jumped in, you don't know who's who, what's going on, and then it jumps into Charlize Theron giving like a recap to I believe the U.S. CIA about what went on, how maybe the plot or plan failed or didn't fail. They're kind of like interrogating her, like what went wrong, and so it backflashes, or not really backflash, but it starts with her talking, recapping how the whole plan unfolded. So you're kind of like really not lost, and I know they do that to confuse you, but you're kind of like trying to figure out who's who, if there's a mole, somebody who's bad, who's gonna backstab who, because in every spy movie, it's kind of like that. So that's basically what you're gonna get. It's and like I said again, it's based in the 80s. So and I'll go through that with what I liked and didn't like. But just keep in mind that it's a spy movie, um, and with two different CIAs involved. You don't know who to trust and who's gonna, and that's with any. I'm gonna say Mission Impossible, maybe even James Bond. Some organization is gonna double cross the other organization. It's a little bit, I would say, convoluted, the storyline, but I guess it's like I said, it's meant to be that way. So she is basically trying to get this list from a couple of different bad guys, but she doesn't know who to trust, who backstabs who. And I'll just kind of leave it like that. I don't want to ramble on too much, but just to have you get a general idea. Um, there's a lot of action in it, a lot of guns, a lot of blood, a lot of fights. So that's what you're gonna expect also, and it's I'm not. I don't know if. Yeah, I guess James Bond does a lot of fighting, but I guess you can kind of sum it. It summed up to me, maybe like a female James Bond, or and this might be a kind of a stretch, but like a '80s Miami Vice, but in London and without drugs. It just sort of kind of because of the music. It has a lot of the soundtrack. I'm gonna probably buy the soundtrack. You should listen to it, or maybe listen to it maybe after you get to watch the movie if you end up watching it. But the soundtrack's amazing. Brought back a lot of memories of because I'm in my mid 30s. And so people that age, 30s, 40s, that lived through the 80s, a lot of stuff is gonna come back to you like, oh, I remember that, and bring back some type of memory about the 80s. Just like the way the cinematography and the sound editing also is done. It's good. It's a good action movie. Don't be too critical of it because you're gonna say, what can a 120-pound girl, 130-pound girl can really take down like 300-pound men? That part you just don't. You just have to go with it. I guess people are gonna argue the whole Bruce Lee thing. Bruce Lee's a little guy, but he can take anybody down. If you want to argue that, like, fighting, if you know how to fight, I'm sure like UFC, people are gonna say, or MMA, like it doesn't matter how small or thin or you are, but if you know how to fight and counter attack people, block stuff, whatever, then it should be fine. But that was the only thing I kind of was like, I don't know. I can't imagine that these huge 200-pound men can't take down. But I guess, you know, she's a really good fighter, so I guess that's her advantage. Maybe the guys don't know how to fight. Maybe they're just big. So there you go. That could be the argument there. But that's the only thing I kind of thought was interesting. I won't say I'm gonna hate it or not like it, but it's just basically a long journey of her trying to find out who and trying to get to the like a final boss. Let's say the final like big guy who is running all these organization and running all the kind of bad stuff. They don't go into too much detail, so I guess they're gonna say that for the second movie, assuming that there is gonna be a second movie. There is the and I'll say it now, there is a lesbian scene where she has to kind of, do what she has to do to get info out of the girl and or get somebody on her side. And that's kind of, I think that was like one of the selling points of the movie is that lesbian scene in it, which is pretty good. I mean, it's, it might be stunt doubles, but, it's just something different that Charlize Theron, I guess, has never done in her career. But both female played the role pretty well. It didn't seem any awkward or anything like. Didn't seem too much like awkwardness in that scene. But I guess that's gonna be the real selling point of the movie. Aside from the action and the guns, is everybody's gonna want to see the lesbian scene. And every movie comes along a couple of years where there's that big thing that everybody's gonna talk about. So I know this is gonna be probably that big lesbian scene that people are gonna want to talk about. So it's pretty raunchy. Charlize Theron sells her sex appeal in the movie because I guess she's among a lot of men, so she has to use that as an advantage. I guess you think about it as a female spy. And in any movie with female spies, that's what they use as their advantage to get over the men or trick them or whatever or con them. Is the sex appeal that men will always fall for. So that's kind of, I'll leave that all together of what you'll expect from the plot storyline. It's about a list that she's trying to get, who has it, and it passes like so many different hands, and she has to figure out who has the list that she needs. So I'll leave that at that. You can, if you have questions, obviously you can ask in the comment section. I'll kind of answer more. I'll jump into now what I liked and didn't like. What I There's probably not going to be too much that I did. Oh, what I didn't like I said, maybe, and I know it's done for a reason. They kind of leave you in the dark in a couple of things, and I'm sure it's done that way. So you're kind of figuring out while she's figuring out the movie. So that's just something you're like. Some people. I mean, it sounds crazy. I feel like some people got bored, and maybe the first half or the third of the movie, I can just tell the body language. Some people are like looking at their phones, which I guess is something altogether we have to deal with. Because people get bored, they'll take out their phone even in a movie and start using it. So that's just it. There's some parts are drawn out while you're learning what's going on in between the action scenes. So that's kind of one thing. The color, it's kind of like nowadays they don't film at nighttime. They film in daytime, and then they use that like dark blue tint, let's say, over it, and you can tell like that's not really night. They just darken like the tint, or they use like a filter, for that scene. But so that's